Facing the combined strength of all Asia under Mongol leadership, how would you win? This is the story told in over 20 minutes of how the mightiest army of the 13th century was crushed by Dai Viet with barely half their numbers when they set foot on Dai Viet.
We must seek a peaceful resolution with the Mongols.
We must fight for our homeland, for our people.
We stand as one, unbreakable!
Scorched earth alone cannot win. The key to victory in this impossible war is, it all begins with the genius and the daring of Tran Khanh, the commander of Dai Viet. Before we go on, do not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Hit like and tell us where you are watching from and what time it is there in the comments. In the year 1285, the Mongol Empire struck Dai Viet, bringing with it the combined might of China, the Dali Kingdom, and Mongolia. At this moment, the Yuan Empire army was the strongest force in all of Asia. 500,000 men against 200,000 of Dai Viet. Within the royal court, two factions clashed. The surrender faction led by Tran Quoc Toan and the war faction led by Tran Khanh. Guided by the war faction, the two kings called for the great assembly of Dien Hong, summoning the elders of the nation. Their voices united as one gave strength to the cause of resistance and silenced all thoughts of surrender. And so Dai Viet entered the war against the Mongols. But no matter how fiercely they fought, whether in sieges or in open battle, the Mongols proved invincible. With no other choice, Dai Viet turned to the scorched earth strategy, evacuating the people and abandoning Thang Long. 600 warriors of the Holy Wing remained behind at choke point, holding the Mongol advance for 7 days, fighting to the death. Their commander was offered a place in the Mongol Empire. Yet he refused and chose death over betrayal. The Mongols seized Thang Long while their southern army advanced north, forming a deadly pincer. In desperation, Dai Viet sent a princess to Prince Togon, commander of the Mongols, perhaps as a bride, perhaps as a spy. Even so, the situation was dire. Dai Viet now held only fragments of land, with 50,000 men left to stand against 300,000 Mongol regulars. It is wartime and no one is safe. The Mongols struck at every village, seizing food for their march. Those who could not flee into the forest hid their stores, refusing to cooperate. And when pressed too hard, they chose death over surrender. Entire villages were wiped away, no soul left alive. The headache returns again, always the same dreams. Visions of past glory. Strange how those memories give me strength in the present. Why do I dwell on the past? Why does my head throb in the now? Perhaps I love battle, but I do not love slaughter. When a warrior falls by the hand of another in fair combat, that is the honor Tangri grants them. But as a general, I slaughter more than I truly fight. And now the headache returns again. News from the front shatters his thoughts. Prince Togon has ordered him north. The governor of Tanhua has surrendered. Yet the other warriors fight on. They carve the word Sat that destroy the Mongols into their very flesh. A mark that they would rather die than bow. The headache returns again. On the streets of Dai Viet, the truth is clear. They have scorched the earth, denied us the glory of open battle. But it is more than that. If even the southern lines are burned, it means they foresaw a path. And if they foresaw our path, then traps surely await us in the north. From the first days of this campaign, Prince Togon and I spoke endlessly of supply lines. We built every safeguard, made this lifeline untouchable, or so it seemed. And yet this unease will not leave me. The headache returns again. This was a deadly chase, a struggle of life and death that would decide the fate of a nation. Omar Khan's relentless pursuit forced the two Tran kings to abandon their ships and flee by land. With intelligence fed by defected royals, Omar Khan pressed on, hunting the kings without pause. But the royal guard, the Holy Wing, rose to their duty. Again and again they blocked the enemy, buying precious time. Ambushes flared across the land. Skirmishes broke out everywhere. The Mongols swore to capture the kings at any cost. Yet somehow, they always arrived a half step too late. At the coastal gate, Tran Khanh appeared, guiding the two kings to the sea. And there, like twin dragons, they returned to the eastern waves. The kings withdrew to Thanhua, where under their call, the armies of the realm gathered once more, ready for the counterstrike. The plan had worked to perfection. The Great Chase was the Mongols' final gamble, and now their hour of famine had come. While the spirit and will of Dai Viet blazed brighter than ever before.
To General Subutai.
I remember the day at Ben
Do you
Bin
understand these orders?
While the lords and generals held their council of war, I was left outside. The king, my cousin, handed me an orange to comfort me, as if I were but a restless youth. Perhaps he thought my fire was immaturity. No. What I carried was anger and fear for our nation. When the country faced peril, I poured my wealth into raising a band of warriors who shared my spirit. We stitched a banner that read, "Crush the enemy, repay the king, 1,000 men of my own," as many nobles had. I was then ordered to join my uncle Tran Khanh, who led guerrilla raids across enemy-held lands. And it was my elder Tran Khanh who entrusted us with a bold-designed strike at the enemy's heart through their mind. More than half of their ranks were not Mongols at all, but forced soldiers from the fallen. And I knew their hearts, as did my brother Tran Quoc Toan. Together we sent a letter from a true prince of the Southern Song dynasty, urging them to lay down arms and abandon their Mongol masters. That letter spread like wildfire through the conscripts, and it shook the very army of the Southern Song dynasty to its core. Among us stood exiles from the Southern Song dynasty. For them, it was a war of vengeance. When Sugetu's fleet drew near Hamtu Gate, we lay in wait with fire arrows. To the enemy, we were phantom rising from nothing, unleashing upon them a storm of flame. And then came the second shock, the sudden charge of Southern Song dynasty warriors in our own ranks. To the conscripts forced into Mongol service, it was as if their brothers had returned from the grave. We spread rumors Kublai Khan was dead. The Southern Song dynasty had risen again. Doubt and terror gnawed at their lines, especially the enslaved soldiers. Omar Khan came rushing to reinforce Sugetu, but this too was part of our design. Against him we sent General Nguyen Quai. 50,000 faced 50,000, but we had the will of the people. Militias pouring endlessly into the fight. On the waters, the Dai Viet Southern Song dynasty. Alliance stood unshaken. For the first time we faced the invincible Mongol fleet in open battle, and we broke them. By the end, 30,000 of their men lay slain or captured. 200 warships fell into our hands. Sugetu and Omar Khan escaped with their lives. But their legend of invincibility had been shattered. Seizing momentum, he struck again, this time to take head. And here my uncle himself, Tran Khanh, took command. A general seasoned in both land and water, he had faced the Mongols nearly 30 years before. We placed our faith in him. And then I saw him the sworn enemy of our people. Sugetu, the first warrior of the Mongols, whose bloody fame helped bring down the Southern Song dynasty, whose hands were stained with the lives of those I loved, my wife's kin, my brothers-in-law, my people all slaughtered by his campaigns. A blood debt I could not ignore. I swore to meet him in battle with every breath and every ounce of my soul. If my death could secure the safety of Dai Viet, if it could avenge my fallen kin, then I would embrace it without fear. The greatest warrior of the Mongols. In the end, he is but a man lost and broken on the battlefield of Dai Viet. Crush the enemy, repay the king. Our scouts brought word Prince Togun's supplies are running dry. This is our moment. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for supporting the channel. On the surface, they still look strong. But in truth, they are already preparing to retreat. And this time we shall strike with the full force of Dai Viet. The entire army gathered as one to deliver the decisive blow. Cut their formations apart. Do not let them unite. Harass them without rest. Do not let them breathe. Strike at their lifelines. Do not let them feed. At Chongduong, we struck on land and water at once, hammering their fleets and their armies together. And at last, Thanglong was freed, its gates thrown wide to welcome the return of our two kings. I had planned this battle for months, a plan full of risk yet built on reason and with the chance to win. Everything began with the scorched earth strategy. The enemy knew we would burn the land, so they built a supply system tighter than iron, guarded and defended to keep us from raiding it. But their supply lines were like veins feeding a body. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers demanded endless convoys of grain and fodder each week. To protect this lifeline, they were forced to scatter their troops into countless camps. And that was the idea. Stretch their supply lines thin enough that each outpost would be weak enough for us to strike. With our knowledge of the land, we could appear suddenly, burn their stores, and vanish before they could react. But they can still reinforce these mobile garrisons. The king said, "Then we must stretch them further, drive them from south to north, never letting them rest, never letting them store food. Let our retreats become bait. Let them exhaust themselves in the chase." For this to succeed, we would need three things: a master of guerrilla war, a commander quick to adapt, and warriors ready to die, holding the enemy in place. The rest became history. A plan that seemed reckless, even desperate, proved victorious. Prince Togon returned to Andu inside a copper-clad tent guarded on all sides. He was the 9th prince of the Mongol Empire. Such a man could not be allowed to die in some nameless forest. Yet that was exactly what the people of this land had tried to make real. Prince Togon had faced not only the fury of local warriors, but the fury of his own father waiting in the capital. As for Omar Khan, he was a proud commander of the Mongols, master of the strongest navy Asia had ever seen. But defeat had cut deep into his pride, wounding the very soul of a man once hailed as a legend. Sugetu had perished while Omar Khan lived. He felt no gratitude for his survival, only rage. He longed to return, to set foot once more on that cursed land, and when he did, the vengeance he carried would be merciless, multiplied 100-fold. So, why did the Mongols have to fight quick and win quick in Dai Viet? They knew Dai Viet would use the scorched earth strategy, and even if they stocked up supplies, the longer the war dragged on, the worse it would be for them. With a population of only 3 million and an iron will, Dai Viet left the Mongols with just two choices: to wipe out the whole Dai Viet population or face resistance that wore them down day by day. The fastest way to end the war was to capture the king and destroy the main Tran army. To do that, they needed intelligence from inside Dai Viet and knowledge of the local terrain, and the surrender of some Tran nobles gave them confidence to chase the king directly. So why were the Mongols invincible? Horse archers were the fighter jets of the 13th century. They came and went like ghosts. You could not chase them. What the Parthian cavalry did to the Romans at Carrhae, the Mongol horse archers could do the same to Western knights. Heavy cavalry were like giant motorbikes crashing straight into enemy lines. Imagine you are a foot soldier standing in front of thousands of these machines. Even if your spear brings down one, the momentum still crushes you and 5 men behind you. The mix of psychological fear and direct physical damage made heavy cavalry the kings of the battlefield before gunpowder arrived. Their strategy of lightning-speed marches meant the enemy could not adapt or keep up. The Mongols chose the battlefield. They could raid villages at will while their enemies stood helpless. This was the most mobile army in the world. And finally, they built a mixed force, gathering the elite troops of every conquered nation. So they became strong in every type of warfare. If you think of it like a game, and the character named Mongol has the power to copy the full strength of any opponent he defeats. So, why did the Mongols have to be brutal? Their population was small, yet their ambition for dominance pushed them into wars with empires far stronger and larger. And unlike what many people think, the Mongols did not actually want endless wars. They wanted to avoid war at any cost. The best outcome for them was when the enemy surrendered without a fight. And to make that surrender happen, they needed shocking examples.
Here is where their weakness will break them.
Huge army. We have to look at the bigger picture of history. These were the last days of Empress Chabi in 1284. The Empress, the woman Kublai Khan loved the most, and at the same time he was under pressure to prove himself. As the true heir of the Mongol legacy, just like his ancestor Genghis Khan, the legacy of conquering the world. For Kublai Khan, Dai Viet and Japan were thorns in his side. They damaged the image of the undefeated descendant of Genghis Khan. So this war in Dai Viet had to be won. To raise the standing of two men, first Prince Togon in the eyes of his father, and second, Kublai Khan in the eyes of his fellow Mongol brothers. So, what were the rules of the game in this war? The context was clear. Dai Viet was a small power in Southeast Asia, but still strong enough that the Mongols brought an enormous army to crush them quickly because they knew a long, drawn-out war would only hurt them. The odds of Mongol victory were almost 100% in the first days, but those odds dropped the longer the war went on. And both sides knew this very well. So Dai Viet tried to buy time, while the Mongols had to capture the Tran kings at all costs. And the key to victory was information. Tran Khanh Dao understood the Mongol movements clearly, and he could predict the exact moment when they would be at their weakest. But on the other side, the Mongols had dangerously poor intelligence about Dai Viet, and were frequently misled by the very king they were chasing. So, why did it seem that the further Dai Viet retreated, the closer they came to victory? Because every time the Mongols gave chase, the invaders grew increasingly exhausted and lost more vital supplies compared to the resilient local people. Think of the Mongol supply line like a rubber band. The further they advanced into the unfamiliar terrain, the more it stretched. And when it reached its breaking point, Dai Viet used small, precise cuts like scissors to sever it. Once their logistical line was compromised, the mighty Mongol army transformed into a massive burden. At that point, they had only two grim choices: retreat or starve. And Dai Viet knew precisely when to strike. Their intelligence network was likely far superior to that of the Mongols. When the Mongols chased Dai Viet, they always seemed to be just moments away from victory, just a little too late. The most plausible explanation is that this was the result of masterful baiting and counterintelligence. The Mongols were consistently fed just enough information to keep them hopeful, but never the crucial detail that would allow them to finish the war. Why do the Vietnamese remember Tran Khanh Dao as a saint of war from the 13th century to this very day? The first reason lies in his extraordinary record of victories. He never lost a single campaign. He took part in all three wars against the Mongols, twice as supreme commander, and led Dai Viet to some of the most remarkable military triumphs ever recorded on the world stage. What set him apart was not only his brilliance in battlefield command, but his mastery across every form of warfare. He was exceptional, both on land and sea, in major engagements and guerrilla ambushes, in conventional strategy and psychological operations. He turned the Mongol strength, their vast multi-ethnic army, into a weakness, by using exiled southern Song Dynasty princes to unravel the loyalty of the Chinese contingents. Even Dai Viet's weakness, the loss of land, was weaponized under his leadership. He lured the enemy deeper into unfamiliar territory, allowing them to be isolated, overwhelmed, and dismantled. But beyond the victories, what truly made him eternal was his spirit. He left behind a legacy of strategy literature and powerful words that continue to stir patriotism in the hearts of generations. Although his family had long-standing rivalries with the ruling branch of the royal court, he set aside vengeance and chose instead the more difficult road, placing national survival above personal ambition or bloodline. That is why for centuries Tran Khanh Dao has stood not just as a legendary commander, but as Dai Viet's eternal saint of war. And now, as I reflect on those times, not as a historian, but as one who walked in the shadow of that age, I realized that our true strength was never just in arms or strategy. It was in unity, in the willingness to sacrifice, and in the clarity of choosing duty over ego. The land was scarred, the rivers red, but our spirit endured, and in that endurance we found victory. What do you think of this story? I would love to hear your reflections. Please share your thoughts below in the comments. Your perspective matters. If this journey moved you, share and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you will not miss any of the powerful stories still to come. You can also explore other videos featured here, stories that I hold close to my heart. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.